Good morning, YouTube. It is cold out here. I don't like it. I stayed in bed all day yesterday because I don't like to come out in this weather. So back here, I said I'll put all the transmission stuff back here. I did have it up here, but I rearranged my boards too and put all the rebuild stuff over there. That makes a good little table for that. I was using them tires over there and this cooler for that table. That works a lot better. But the Trans Am, I'm certain it has a lifted head gasket. So we're going to bring that in here. I'm going to drive it around a little bit and then bring it in here just because it ain't been driven in a little while. So I'm going to drive it up and down the road anyway. And I'm going to bring it in here. We're going to do some head gaskets and some head studs. We're going to go with cosmetic head gasket this time. He had a different kind on there. I forgot, but they were pretty much the same thing. Those were a little bit more expensive though, maybe $5-10 bucks. And then we're going to do ARP studs. He's got ARP bolts in it. But we also got this power block thing. I don't know if you guys remember from the last videos, but we have everything, literally everything, running to the back of the alternator. And that alternator stud, it's come loose. And so we're going to run a power block. We're going to run the battery straight to that power block, and then we'll run the alternator to the power block, and then everything else will come off the power block. And that'll be better than having 10 things stacked on that little bitty alternator stud, which is actually broke. I need to pull that out, fix that. But that's all the transmission rebuild stuff. I was hoping to get the transmission together and put it to the side, but that guy said he'd have it cleaned in a week. It ain't cleaned yet, so he's like, I didn't fire the parts washer up this week. But oh well. That'll have to wait. We're going to do the heads and the power block and fix the alternator on this one. I'm going to check a few things too. I'm going to make sure there's no corrosion in the cap. Them MSD caps, they like to get condensation inside of them, which gets corrosion. But the car did overheat when Austin took it to run it on motors. So the only other reason it would have overheated is if the head gasket was blown. But I'm going to check all that stuff anyway. But I got to charge the battery up. His battery, it goes quick. It goes dead in like 2 or 3 weeks if you don't start the car. But yeah, see y'all when I get it pulled in here. And ta-da, the Trans Am's inside. All right, now I'm going to take the air cleaner off of it. I'm going to take the distributor off of it. I'm going to take the plug wires and the plugs out. Alright, so I took the distributor tab out. There's 2 bolt holes. Sometimes the tab can be in that top one, sometimes it can be in the bottom one, but just take that out. And you can slide this piece back and pull the distributor out. But I just went ahead and took it all the way out. But I took the plug wires off first. And I took them off the plugs. I've set them over there. Just because I'm going to mount. Chris was smart enough to mount all the plug wires when they were brand new. So I'm going to mount, make sure they're still read the same. And I took all the valve covers off. Took off all the electronics from the back of that stud. And that stud moved around a lot, but I was able to tighten it up and it don't move around now. So I tightened it up real good. I thought I was going to have to take that apart to fix that, but nope. So now, these solenoids, these nitrous solenoids, I can just undo that nut and the wire and the magnetic part will come off and go with the wiring harness. And then I can undo this top radiator hose and the fuel line for the nitrous and the fuel line for the motor. And I should be able to take the intake and carburetor off after I take the throttle linkage off. all in one piece. But now some alternator brackets, they bolt to the intake too. If that's the case, you gotta take that part off. And then gotta unbolt everything from the front of the heads. I'll have to unbolt that fuel pump. The bottom of the alternator is the only piece that there was a bolt going through there, and I took it out. And then yeah, I'm gonna undo this bottom radiator hose and try to drain as much coolant out as I can, because on a small block Chevy, unlike an LT1 or an LS1 for that matter, usually water dead ends back here on most small block Chevy intakes, but we've got this intake where it routes it up to the front gooseneck, and then water comes in from the head up to here and then through all that. But yeah, on all small block Chevy intakes, it comes up through here to the water neck, and then back here that usually dead ends, but like I said, we've got it made to where it'll come through. It just keeps the back of the back cylinders a little bit cooler. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take these solenoids off and get the wiring out of the way and take that shifter linkage off. All right, I got the water draining out of it. Unfortunately, that doesn't get all the water out. There is a little plug on both sides of the block. Hey, you can't see it from here. Yeah, you can. Right there. If you take that plug out, it'll drain it all out of the block. And the thing about it is, if you don't drain it all out of the block, you take the heads off, a bunch of water comes out. Which I guess it's not that big of a deal. It gets down in the cylinders, you dry it out, do an oil change when you're done, and you're set. But there's that one right there. Maybe we'll take the headers off next and take that plug out. It needs an oil change anyway. A lot of it will come out when you take one of these bottom bolts out. When you take one of these bottom bolts out, a lot of it, the coolant will come out. Oh, also on the distributor, if you take your cap off, mark where the rotor is pointing, and you don't turn the motor over, you can put all that back the way you had it, and it should start right up. If you mark where the rotor was at and where the cap was, where the distributor itself was stabbed at. But I redo all that anyway. It's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I'm gonna go watch football, let that drain, and then might come out here later and work on it. If not, I'll work on it tomorrow. All right, I went ahead and got the headers loose. I'm gonna have to jack this side up and slide that down because I can't get it out of the way of them bottom bolts. And it gets hung on the starter, pulling up and down on it. But if I jack the car up some, it should slide down more. I just need it to go down. But yeah, I had to take the bolts out, had to take the dipstick out. There's just a bolt on the side of the block that holds the dipstick in. I had to take the coolant temp switch right here that controls the fan. I had to take that off. And on the other side, we got one in the other side that controls the gauge. I had to take that one out. Now this one right here, it's a different story. It moved out of the way enough for me to get in there. But yeah, we'll worry about that when we start to take the head bolts off, because I want the car low to the ground so my short fat butt can reach up in here. But I'm gonna go ahead and take the rocker arms and the push rods off, and then I'll take this linkage off, and then we'll undo the fuel lines for the standalone and for the fuel pump, and undo the water hose, radiator hose, and then we should be able to take that off. All right, a couple busted knuckles later, and the rocker arms and push rods are off. I dropped one push rod down in the motor, but that ain't gonna matter because we have to take the intake off. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loosen the intake bolts and When I loosen them, I'm going to loosen them all about 1/8 of a turn, and then go back through them in the order that you would tighten them down in, which would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, something like that. Just a crisscross pattern from the inside out. And then we'll take these fuel lines off, and then thermostat, well, that is where the thermostat goes. Radiator hose off, and the throttle linkage, and then we should be able to pull that off. Now once you get all the bolts out of this intake, they usually don't come off easy, especially if you use Permatex on the rear and front china wall. So what I did was I went right here and just slowly pulled up on it, and it finally broke loose. And this intake's got a little hole in it right there, so I think it should come off now. But I tried prying around the edges, like right here and right here, and it looked, and back here, and it looked like it broke loose, but it did not. The only place I could get it to break loose was right over the water pump here. There's a little edge that goes back. You can grab the intake right there, and that broke it loose. All right, now I'm gonna carefully pull all that off there. Try not to get tangled up in anything I left on the car. Well, wound up climbing my fat butt up in here. It was stuck on that back china wall pretty good. I did a pretty good job RTVing that, that's for sure. Now I can take that push rod I dropped, and then we can go ahead and start taking the head bolts out. Alright, so the same thing on these head bolts. I'm going to follow the torque pattern, and I'm going to break them all loose about 1/4 turn. I usually do start in the middle, and then I do like a U pattern like that. It's just easier to keep up with. But you can do a crisscross pattern too, like here. Start in the middle though. Here, 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 you know, etc. Start from the inside and go out. And I'm gonna break them all loose about 1/4 turn, then go through them, break them all loose another 1/4 turn, and then I'll take them out. And I'm gonna take one of these bottom back ones out first, because I'm gonna try to get a bunch of fluid out, and I'll try to catch it, but I don't know how much I'll be able to catch, because that's going to be coming down right where the header's at. And I'm going to do this side first, because that side over there I'm going to have to jack the car up to push that header down further to be able to get to the bottom bolts. So usually your head's stuck. This one's not. I barely pulled on it and it come loose. What I usually do is I take my breaker bar, I wrap a rag around it, stick it down in the hole, just pull. Look at that, it's already broke loose. I just barely pulled on it. And sometimes you gotta do that from this side too. Get it good and broke loose. Alright, and then just wiggle and pull and it should come off. Now I got this head off. And what I've seen on these metal gaskets, they usually leak in between the layers. It's hard to pull those apart and look in there, but usually you can see signs of something. But I don't think this side was leaking. I mean, all the bolts were nice and tight. And look at that. I love these layered gaskets, because there ain't no cleanup. Look at that. I just wipe that down. Put the head studs in. Wipe it down. Do a thread chaser. Put some sealant on the threads and put the studs in. Put the gasket on, and yeah, very little cleanup at all. So yeah, but this side looks good. I don't see anywhere where it could have been leaking on this side, honestly. Yeah, everything looked good. The bolts were nice and tight. I don't know. Let's dry this up. Put some I can't think, petroleum jelly, Vaseline, down in the cylinders so they don't try to start rusting on us. Then we'll pull the other side off. Alright, so I got this side off too. And I can't tell where it was leaking at. It's hard to tell on them layered gaskets, but just like mine, when I did mine on the car, you could drive it everywhere and it wouldn't overheat and it'd run fine. The only time it would mess up is when you was going down the 1/4 mile, wide open throttle. That's the only time it would mess up. And that's just like his. You're driving around, no problems at all. Won't overheat. Drive it as much as you want, but you go down the track and it starts white smoking coolant out the exhaust pipe. But yeah, I love these still layered gaskets because there's no cleanup as long as you don't use that copper spray. I don't know if we should use that or not. What do you guys think about the copper spray? You think that's a good idea, or should we just do it dry as it is? I mean, this thing's making around 700 rear wheel horsepower. And every time Chris races it, he sprays, it's about 250 shots, 300 shot. And this is the first time we've had issues with this. And he just had the ARP bolts. We're going to put ARP studs in it this time. He was using that's a Felpro gasket, but it's one of the really good ones. But we went with a Cosmetic, or how you pronounce that. We went with that brand this time. But yeah, that's going to conclude cylinder head removal for this video. And then tomorrow I'll start another video. I'm going to clean the coolant out of these cylinders and lube them up with some Vaseline. Then tomorrow I'm going to come out here and I'm going to clean it up real good. It really don't need cleaned. I'm just going to spray some parts cleaner on there and wipe it down real good and do the same on the heads. And then I'm going to run a thread chaser. I forget my words sometimes. I'm going to run a thread chaser through all the holes to get all the grime and grit out of there. I had a thread chaser from when I did my LT1 heads in my specialty parts box. I got to dig through and find it. But I'll thread chase all those out, and then we'll put the studs on, put the gaskets on, and we'll drop the heads on. But what do you guys think about the copper spray? I do have some copper spray. I've never used it. A lot of people I talk to say don't use it, but I don't know. What do you guys think? You think it'd help for this? Because yeah, hopefully with the studs we won't have this issue again. But anyway, like and subscribe and have a great day.